Morning. Welcome to Supertalk. This is Gerald Crawford. I'm here with my associates and friends from Schwartz and Associates. We're here to be with you for this next hour. We're going to talk about a few things. First thing at the top of the list is the death of Pope Francis. We have a couple of esteemed colleagues. We have Daniel Jukins and we have Zach. Zach, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Zach Harper. I've been on the show a few times. I've been with Schwartz for about 2 years. Happy to be here.
Daniel?
Daniel Junkin. I'm from Brandon. I've been on the show a few times as well. Been with Schwartz going on 6 years this year. Yeah.
6 years?
Yeah.
Dang. Time flies.
It does fly. It really feels like I just got there.
I know. It was 15 years ago for me last May. So this May it'll represent 16 years.
Will it really?
Yeah, and I can't believe that it's gone so fast. Made a lot of friends. Just great people. Richard, just a lot of great people in the industry. So I can't say that I regret being down here at all. So
Man, I'm telling you, the 6 years that I've been here, I've worked at 3 or 4 other law firms, and this is by far the most.
Right.
It's a family-based business. It really is. People treat you like
it is.
People in the business or in our firm, they treat everybody like family, from receptionist to Richard. And then I think that actually extends to our clients as well. It actually does, and we treat our clients like families.
And you're so right. It feels like it allows you to extend the homeliness to your clientele base, and it's just being here it's a blessing without a doubt. And speaking of blessings, we are just coming off of Easter, and what a news story to receive waking up this morning after the day after Easter. Pope Francis has died.
That is sad news.
Yeah.
Very sad news.
So, what are your thoughts on this, Zach?
It'll be interesting to see who they pick next if they go back to somebody from Europe or, Pope Francis, like we were talking before the show, was the first pope from South America. So
Right.
It's one of the most influential positions in the world.
It is.
You have President of the United States and the Pope.
Right.
That's about the two top faces of the world. They lead policy for the world. So whoever the Pope's going to be, man, we should all pray for who the Pope's going to be, because he's going to influence Christianity and the way that the world goes for the next 30, 40 years.
And, it's you bring up such a great point. Most people don't realize that during the Cold War, Pope John Paul played a significant part in helping the U.S. deal with the Cold War as far as the Russians and communism, and they viewed it as something that needed to be dealt with, and they assisted. Of course, the Pope would never take up arms or nothing, but it was like telling their followers, what to believe and how they should proceed and deal with things like that. So when you talk about being a face in such an influential position, he is right next to probably the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. I would go, top 2 or 3. What, Elon number 3, I guess.
Yeah.
But so
Elon might have more of a voice to the developed world,
right?
But the Pope still maintains a huge presence in underdeveloped countries,
right?
So
exactly
in Africa, raising money there, South America, he's touching a lot of places. So who the next Pope is, it's going to make a difference. So we probably all should be thinking about that.
Yeah, before we move on to the next one, let's celebrate Pope Francis. He was celebrated for being inclusive. He was. Try to influence even our current president, trying to, be more inclusive about immigrants. We all know President Trump has a pretty firm stance on immigration in America, and and not just immigration. He was also very understanding and tolerant of the LGBT community. Though he said he said, look, being, gay and things like that is a sin, but it's not a crime, and it's not something that will prevent somebody from, seeing the pearly gates, And
well, each sin's created equal.
That's right. Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. So, I think, have they begun the process already of picking a new pope?
Now, I would think they'd have to get all the cardinals into Vatican City first.
You'd think so, yeah.
It's probably going to take them a little bit to get everybody there to vote if they have to do it all in person, because you have cardinals all over the world.
Right.
And, speaking of Easter influencing and Easter events, how about Putin declaring a truce in Ukraine for Easter? Right. So what was the thought process on that right there?
There's some precedent for that in wars, throughout history. I believe was it World War II where they had a truce for Christmas?
World War I.
That was World War I?
Yeah, in between the trenches, they actually played a soccer game.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, the German and the English armies played a soccer game on Christmas Eve.
Did not know that. I just learned something new today.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. That is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Russian Orthodox Church is a big influence in Ukraine and Russia. So at least proposing to stop for Easter. Now, what they do when they stop, I don't know how good their logistics are in communicating down to the base level of when they're actually going to stop shooting. But
right. It
might be a decent gesture.
There has to be some form of high-level communication to prevent somebody from being shot.
Right.
Other national news, we're right now, before we deal locally with Jackson, we're talking about what's going on nationally. One of the main topics going around in our field is the Supreme Court. Supreme Court just issued a order preventing President Trump and the administration from doing a mass deportation of some new migrants to El Salvador. It was pretty shocking who voted for it. I think everybody voted for the stay except Thomas and Alito. So that means you got Roberts and Kavanaugh agreed.
And Gorsuch.
And Gorsuch.
Yeah.
They had to agree that that some form of due process needed before we start extraditing. I want to say extraditing, not extraditing. Deporting.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think it creates I don't think the Supreme Court is necessarily wrong in their interpretation of the law, but it does create this ambiguity in how these district court judges are affecting policy on a national level.
Right.
These people are not elected.
Mm-hmm.
They are just appointed to handle diversity cases, which are people from different states or entities from different states, and federal questions.
Right.
But what federal questions, how far should that extend, right?
Well, if you ask me, I think the number one premise of your question is, can a local district judge affect a nationwide policy? I would say probably not, but we do know that if something is waiting to be adjudged by a district court in one area, it influences other district courts. So they may want to see what the ruling is, even if that court doesn't have any binding precedents over them. I mean, the Fourth Circuit is not influenced by the Fifth Circuit, but they may rely on it. So.
Persuasive.
Very persuasive. So waiting to see how something is how the other court will rule, or, even waiting to see if that's appealed to the Supreme Court. So.
Well, that's a good point. I feel like the important thing to remember with these federal district courts is if they make a constitutional ruling that is important to the country, the Supreme Court's going to get to it soon.
Right.
It's like with the Aliens Enemies Act. The Supreme Court's already ruled on that now. So.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if it's so much if it's like they're not elected. Granted, they're not elected. So is Elon. He's not elected. But, I mean, he influences policy. So things that will eventually end up in the Supreme Court, I don't think it's that big a deal when it will eventually, like you bring up, it's going to end up in the Supreme Court lap. They're going to make a decision on, the constitutionality of things. And so, and then everything cannot be immediately before the Supreme Court for far as an injunction.
Right.
So if you got something that needs to be ruled upon, the court wants the lower courts to rule upon it in the first place so they can have jurisdiction to deal with it.
The districts are supposed to be test cases.
Right.
Government where you try and error.
Right. Well, I mean, they do have a lot of error in the district court. So we went off air. We were talking about the Supreme Court and Donald Trump, and we are actually having a good discussion about, about judges, district court judges having the ability to issue injunctions nationwide, even though their district is only for a certain area. And so I would like to delve into that just a little bit more because we have so many issues going up before the Supreme Court. And one of the topics we were talking about off air was one of the actions of the administration that was that's being challenged is that the federal dollars being held from schools to be complicit in what the administration believes should be done or should be taught or how things should proceed at a college. Daniel is I think you have the opinion. Why don't you express your opinion on that?
I mean, my position is if you accept federal money, then they can impose restrictions on how that federal money is used. If you accept it under the conditions, they can give conditions on how they give money, just like they make the drinking age federally 21 to accept interstate road money. Like, you can have the drinking age 18, but you're not going to get the interstate road money. Right. So you can do that with money. When it's federal government money, you can put conditions on how it's used. And if it's not being used for that purpose, then they should stop.
Now, I guess what to go to your point, I would have to question your point. Do we have the ability to question what the government is asking us to do, whether it's legal or not? If the government is imposing a restriction on you that you deem is illegal, like, hey, you need to do this, and somehow
that's a much higher burden for the government to make somebody do something, as opposed to restricting somebody from doing something, right? So the government forcing an action is a much higher burden than just like a law saying you can't drive drunk.
Okay.
Right?
Now, are you...
So, like, forcing you to get something done, like a vaccine, a federally mandated vaccine, like you have to get that done.
Right.
It's going to have to meet a much stricter burden at the Supreme Court level than opposed to, say, hey, you can't cross the street on a red light. Now,
in the letter that was released by the New York Times, the letter, we're all talking. There's nobody here not knowing what university we're talking about. We're talking about Harvard. We're talking about the administration's letter to Harvard. And in that letter, they did insist on positive action, not restriction, but positive action.
And that is a different standard.
Right.
That's a different standard.
They had they wanted some positive action as far as thought.
And I believe it has to be so narrowly tailored to the objective of the government.
Right.
Now, my constitutional law, it's been a long time
right.
to lay out, their standard of review. But, and that is very much in the weeds.
Well, I think importantly, it depends on what, you're saying, here's this federal money, you have to do X, Y, and Z. It depends on what that X, Y, and Z is. Because if they said, for example, you can teach a Christian theocracy class, but you can't teach a Muslim theocracy class, that could run afoul of the Establishment Clause and would be unconstitutional. So it really depends on what they're asking them to do or not to do.
Well, now, if one of the things in the letters was a demand for more right-leaning teachers, those who identify as conservative, to be hired into their academia. And so it was looking for a specific viewpoint. We want this viewpoint taught at Harvard. So that is, in my opinion, saying, hey, we want somebody here to teach, whatever. I don't know what in the world is a conservative viewpoint in college as far as, math and English, so it has to be something along some type of.
Unless you're in a political science class,
that's where I was heading.
No political leanings.
That's exactly where I was going. So it had to be something in the political science arena, I believe.
Even if you are in a political science arena, I was a political science minor, and I graduated from Ole Miss fairly recently. I graduated from undergrad in 2015. I hear a lot of people say that college in general tends to lean left, and I think that's where the administration is coming from here. But as someone who just graduated pretty recently, I don't feel like that's the case.
Right.
All of my professors were pretty neutral.
Right.
We had some that lean left. We had some that lean right.
And that is one of the things. Is it really, in my opinion, this is me talking. This is, and it's kind of piggybacking off you. It kind of seemed like it's just chasing a phantom, something that may not truly exist, Forrest, because I have lived my entire life in the South. Myself, UAB, went to Southern, also studied up in Tennessee. All of these places that I was at, I never really heard any discussion about politics, as far as right or left, as much as I'm hearing that supposedly it's happening. I didn't see it when I was there. So
we have a call from Bob, and he wanted to jump in on y'all's conversation here.
All right,
Bob, you are.
Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, look, real quick. I know I'm a little bit older than some of y'all, but I remember sitting and surrounded by Iranians and Middle Easterns in grad school after the Iranian hostage crisis. And so it was real uncomfortable for a lot of different reasons. Mainly, we were at odds with the country that I was surrounded by in my classroom. And the other thing was their customs and their culture were very different than ours. So my question to y'all this morning is because we have, and that's another quick question that I had for the guys that were sitting across from the host today, was when you were in college, did you think that you could change the world or make the world a better place when you got out of college? But back to the first question, the Iranians and the Middle Easterns, should we be forced to be students with people that we're at odds with, countries we're at odds with, and nations that we might be at war with? How do you feel about that? And is that something that goes beyond just the classroom?
All right, so I'm going to go to Zach first. Zach, his question is about international students and I guess international conflict when they overlap. You got international conflict with country A, and you have some international students who are also from country A. What is your opinion about dealing with someone in a classroom setting when your countries are in conflict?
Well, and I don't want to get too political and take a position on this, but if they're here legally with a student visa, or if they're a legal U.S. citizen who recently immigrated from another country that we're at odds with, I'm not sure there's anything you can do about it. I mean, it's the same way if you have a disagreement with someone who's from your home state, and you're in the classroom with them. I mean,
I actually think that any of those visas they can be revoked at any time. So if you are not a citizen, then it can be revoked. So if we are at war with a specific country, which we are not at the moment,
right?
But if we were to say, let's pick a friend country, so if we were at war with the United Kingdom,
right?
It would never happen. But
you never know.
Well, yeah, you never know. You never know. So, but anyway, just for example, there's a lot of people with visas here. If we found that would be against our military interests, we would kick them out.
Right.
So
wartime,
if we were at war, it is a very different standard as opposed to now.
I think war is the line of demarcation where you would look at extraordinary things. Let's go ahead and be a little bit more. I wouldn't say. I would say let's be a little bit more controversial and pick China. If we are at war with China, I mean, if you're at war with China, there are a lot of Americans who have ties to China who work in industries that are very vital to our national security. And there will be what we call a threat assessment about what they can do and potential harm they
and
can
I
do.
bet a lot of those visas would be revoked if that were to happen.
Absolutely. But I want to get back to the classroom setting because I want to talk about that more, about what Bob is talking about. So Bob, stick around. We're going to address your concern some more, and we're going to talk about that when we get back. Thank you. We're having a very good discussion. Bob, one of our loyal listeners, called in with a great question, and I want to get back to first, we're going to go in the first part, but let's deal with the second part. I thought was an interesting question. Why you two young men were in school, did you feel like you were there to change the world, or you could change the world?
I mean, a small part of me did. I was pretty into politics when I was in college.
Right.
But at the same time, I was also just looking to get out and get a job and make some money. So.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, I was worried about the weekend and finding a job. Like, could I get decent grades and find a job?
Right.
And, the rest will take care of itself. Like, you got to worry about the problem you're in at the moment.
Exactly.
Like, if you're not immersed in what grades I can get or how I can find this job, like, changing the world is not going to happen if you don't take care of it right now.
But there's this funny thing about the field we end up in, especially you two. You're in a social engineering field. I mean, we changed the world. Lawyers changed the world. I mean, without lawyers, where would this country be? We're talking about disabilities, social and civil rights. We're talking about safety codes. We're talking about lawyers are social engineers. So in a way, we do change the world. Now, did we start out? I know I didn't start out thinking about changing the world, but you do change it. We change it one case at a time.
Yeah. Like we were talking about earlier, the family atmosphere at our firm.
Right.
When clients come in, they are in a bad situation, and having family and people on that at least have your back, somebody to listen to you, know they got your back, that's a lot of help because, man, if you were in a car wreck and that car is the only thing you have for you and your two kids to get to work and school, and now it's in the shop, and the insurance company's not even trying to give you a rental, and you got medical bills. And, I mean, that is a lot. So to have a team behind you that can empathize with that, it's a massive weight off of your shoulders.
Well, Bob, I would say we do change the world one case at a time. I think we all had a case where we've done real good for a client, and that client stays in touch with you because they have a perspective about a new perspective about our field and what it takes to have a lawyer fight for them.
Absolutely.
And so
and think about how that affects the kids. You make you help the family get their feet back back on their feet. That's helping the kids. That's helping the kids at school. You can see it just going down the line. It can help change the world, but it just starts with one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob is probably thinking on a bigger scale. When we're talking about in the classroom, and we're talking about You know, when you are in college, you are exposed to a very diverse population. I don't think there's any other place in America that is more diverse than the classroom at a college. I mean, it is. I can remember my exposure to students from India, which I had never had any exposure to, coming from Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, it was, my exposure were, black, white, and, very, very few at the time when I was young, Hispanics. But when I got to college, man, I'm talking about they were from everywhere, and so, and even then, when you're in a classroom setting, you're there with people who believe in academia, and I would like to believe, and of course, unfortunately, we saw what happened at Florida State University just here recently with the young man, a Florida State student, deciding that instead of talking things out, he decided to turn the gun on his classmates. But I would like to believe that the overwhelming majority of people in academia believe in the pen over the sword. And we believe in discussion and how it could help resolve things in the future, even current and future conflicts. That's just my opinion.
Universities have held a staple in Western society, going back to ancient Greece. I mean, that's where people learned philosophy. That's where people learned democracy, and older people have to work. They got jobs. I mean, those people in that age group, those are the only ones you create new ideas, you bounce them around, right? And then the school setting is good. I mean, I got, I guess, exposed to a lot of different cultures through athletics. I mean, soccer's an international sport, so I mean, I got a lot.
The international.
Yeah, so I got to play with a lot of different folks from around the world.
Really? I did not know you were a soccer player.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a little bit. A long time ago. But, so you get, a locker room is very tight-knit, so you don't care what race they are. You have one goal, right?
That's right.
You have one goal. You don't care what they do when they leave the place. I mean, it should be the same thing at universities, right? You have one goal.
Right.
Educate, bounce ideas off, but they don't have to come to blows over them. I mean, that's just a testing ground for new ideas, right? You should be a little far right, a little far left. Just bounce everything off.
Yeah, and prayers out to the victims and the families for the unfortunate shooting at Florida State University. That not too many days before Easter, so that was very sad for that family. But let's talk a little bit about home. Here in Jackson, Schwartz and Associates, we've been here for over 40 years. We've been doing this for a long time. And so tell me about your experiences as far as, give me one of your most unique cases that you've had at
Unique cases?
Yeah.
I am trying to think of what is the most, whether it's, I've had one of the most unique cases, just because it still sticks with me. The picture is what stuck to me. The guy was sitting in his truck, and a log truck was in front of him, and the transmission went out, and it just backed up, and the logs went through the windshield. It was the scariest picture I've ever seen.
Really?
But you just don't see that very often. It still struck me.
An impaled truck. Oh my God!
The guy had to.
Oh my goodness!
Literally duck to miss the. Right. But it was just the most shocking picture.
Oh man, that's just scary to even think about.
Yeah, it still sits with me. But I mean, you think about it. How you've been in 16 years,
right?
I mean,
been there 16.
You can see the pictures of accidents, and you can kind of get numb to it if you look at it for so long, right? And you see these bad pictures, and you're like, yeah, I know you're hurt, I know it hurts, but you'll get over it. But I see it every day. These people, I've never been in a wreck before.
Right.
That is terrifying.
Right.
And it's useful to look at it from that perspective too.
You know, especially when clients are dealing with that, especially right after the accident, we've actually had some photos of the actual videos of right after the accident, and the panic that these people are experiencing is just next level, because they're just shocked about what has happened and what's going on with them. So I've definitely seen that. One of the unique cases I've had is more on the funnier side was a young man at a casino tried to play hero in the weirdest way. He's got a raccoon into the casino.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And country guy, country boy. He was like, hell, I can handle a raccoon.
So the raccoon was in the casino. He was going to get it out.
And he took it upon himself to get that raccoon out of there. And that raccoon went raccoon, and it tore him up, But believe it or not, we were able to, it was more of him, the settlement was more of about him taking the onus to try to help the casino and do that. But that was a unique case. I thought it was real funny.
That is unique.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it is wild. You have a unique case, Zach?
Well, I'm fairly new. I've only been here 2 years. A lot of my unique cases might be ongoing.
Right.
But I got a unique case that I worked on when I was with the court. I clerked for Justice Coleman. I guess it was 2019, 2020, the ballot initiative process with the medical marijuana.
Okay.
Me and Walker were actually both, Walker Lacey that works at the firm, we were both clerks for Justice Coleman, and we worked on that case.
Well, I tell you what, there are a lot of folks in Mississippi glad you guys got that done. So,
I think the Department of Revenue is glad, too.
I know, right? I didn't realize I had so many people in my life that would find that interesting and went into that business.
Well, you make it legal?
Yeah, and they will come.
Yes.
All right, well, we get ready to go into a break. We'll be right back. We'll wrap things up. Thank you guys for being with us this morning. Bob, I hope we answered your questions. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to call back in. Welcome back to Schwartz and Associates, Supertalk. We're here for the last few minutes here with your hour. If you have any questions, please call in. We'd love to talk to you, answer some of your questions. We were just talking about our cases here at Schwartz, and just in case you don't know what we do at Schwartz and Associates, let me just remind you, we do car wrecks, we do slip and falls, medical malpractice. We also have some cases involving civil actions, class action cases where we're dealing with people. If you've been diagnosed with certain cancers like kidney cancer or anything like that, you may want to call in, because we have some cases that we're exploring, that these cancers may be caused from exposure to tap water. So if you know anybody having that unfortunate situation, please give us a call, and we'll screen them, and let them know what we believe, if we can assist them or not. For the last 5 minutes we have here, I want to talk about, we talk about some controversial stuff. We can talk about Easter and something positive on the way out, and what Easter means for each one of us. Of course, for me, Easter represents the Christ rising from the dead, and for me, my own religious belief, I believe that he did die on a cross for us, and I am grateful for all opportunities that I've had and that has been provided for me, and I am eternally grateful for my Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior. What does Easter mean for you?
That's well said, Gerald. That was from the heart. That was well said, man. I think Easter's about new beginnings, man. He rose from the dead. It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Right,
you know,
right.
It's like a whole new start.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
it's like a New Year.
Right.
New Year's is like a real New Year's for the soul, right?
Resurrection.
Absolutely,
for the soul.
absolutely. That's what I would say Easter is.
I agree with that. It is a renewal.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, I guess for me, I've got a 2-year-old now, so all of my holidays now have become whatever she wants to do.
Absolutely. Eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
Easter baskets.
Right, exactly. Chocolate.
Oh, I got a 6 and 9-year-old, and all we do is chocolate.
Right.
They wanted an Oreo cake and Oreo milkshake. Like all yesterday, we did nothing but sweets.
I have a 9, 12, and 21-year-old, and there's a TikTok going around for Easter where the 20-somethings are getting in the car crying because they're claiming that the mom didn't love them, and she said, "My mom didn't love you." And the mom comes in and she says, "I didn't say that." She said, "What did you say?" I said, "You're too old for an Easter basket." And she yelled out, "It's the exact same thing." And so the 21-year-old, she is still a big baby, and she expects to have the Easter basket. So
that's too funny.
That is hilariously true. So some stuff on social media is true, you know. So, I hope everybody. It's a challenging time for the country, and challenging time for our city. We got an election coming up.
Yeah.
So who we have? Horn versus Lumumba. So I don't live.
When is the?
It's tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Runoff is tomorrow.
No, they have.
Is it?
The election is tomorrow.
Is the runoff
correct?
election tomorrow?
I'm sorry, tomorrow or Wednesday, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's tomorrow, though. I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, I believe it's tomorrow. So look,
Man, you got to pray for your leaders.
yeah, you have to. And if you're in Jackson area, I think you need to get out and vote.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you who to vote for. I don't have a dog in a race, but it'll be very hard for you to complain if you don't get out there and your vote counts. Your vote matters. And from what I understand, that it was kind of a low turnout for the initial runoff, for initial primary. So I would hope that Jacksonians get out there and make their voice heard and support whoever they believe will lead this great city forward.
Well, the more active you are in your local politics, the more involved you get, the more you watch, the more you care.
Right. So I agree
it
with
could
that.
change a city. It starts with the individual.
Yeah,
Primary runoff is the 22nd, so yes, it is tomorrow, and polling places will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
All
Excellent.
right, then y'all got that. You know your spots where you're supposed to vote. Get out there and let your voice be heard, man. Don't sit it out. There are too many people sitting it out and then complain. Vote, then complain. If you don't vote, you shouldn't complain. Just you gotta do your part. And speaking of, we talk about Easter and things like that. Part of the things that faith without works is dead, and so complaining without doing your part is dead also. So hey, we're going to thank you guys for coming in and being with us. This was a great hour for me. Got to sit here with two great guys from my firm, got to know a little bit more about them, and one is a former soccer star. Didn't know that.
That might be a bit exaggerated.
Well, hey guys, thank you for being with us today.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Gerald.
All right.